Namaskar. Hello, friends. Religion, sin, heaven, or hell are not relevant. It is not necessary for a true seeker to bother about any dharma, that is, organized religion, that is founded on the concepts of pap, that is sin, and punya, which is credit for pious deeds, and heaven or hell. The seeker should simply surrender to the one God, and then he will be cleansed of all the sins and liberated. The seeker need not worry about anything that he does or does not do. There are many examples in the Puranas of persons having committed all kinds of sins in their early life, like sage Valmiki as a robber in the early life, and later surrendering to God with all their mind and body by way of rigorous penance and getting liberated. A liberated person is established in jnana, that is really real spiritual wisdom. The cornerstone of all the qualities of a self-realized person that relate to his conduct in the world is a non-dual attitude regarding everything as same without preferences, likes or dislikes. With that internal attitude, the external conduct of such a seeker is totally even-minded without anything perturbing him or exciting him. He is all the time God conscious, though he may be living a normal life in the external world. A person who has transcended the three gunas is totally even-minded. Such a person has transcended all the duality, and his consciousness is no longer captive to his body and the physical world. He is at a level of consciousness where it is nothing like what we ordinarily perceive in the physical world with our physical senses. Even sun and moon are a part of the illusory physical world, which are not present at that self-realized consciousness level, and yet there is illumination there. That is a different perception. Liberation is an irreversible process. Since detachment, disinterest in worldly life, and a total surrender to the singular are the most important prerequisites for liberation, once one gets liberated by fulfilling that prerequisite, there is no question of his returning to another life in this world because he is no more interested in it. Non-doership. We should not think that I did this or that and hence I deserve such and such fruit of my action. We should believe firmly that it is the divine acting through us for a divine purpose and not for any gain to ourselves. That is non-doership. But it does not mean that we do not have to bother about whatever we are doing just because we are not the doer. It doesn't mean, for example, that a murderer should be condoned because he is not the doer of the murder. That would be a very distorted interpretation of the concept of non-doership. The correct interpretation is as follows. We are responsible in a worldly sense for the actions taken by us. So, if the world has a law to punish a murderer, the murderer is the doer of the murder in a worldly sense, and as such, he has to suffer the consequences. Before deciding on a particular course of action, you must think of the worldly consequences as per your conditioning, experience, knowledge, and intelligence, and then suffer or enjoy the actual consequences, whatever they may be. The real meaning of non-doership is as follows. The consequences of our actions, more often than not, turn out to be different from what was expected by us when we launched the action. This is because the consequences arise as a result of a totality of various related actions by different players having an influence on the particular situation. In that sense, we should understand that we are not the sole doer of the total action. The doer of the big picture action is hardly ever one single person. So what this means is that I should not consider the so-called outcome or the consequence to be a result of only my own apparent action. There may be other actors, there may be particular situations that caused me to take the particular action that I took, etc. Some people believe that the whole drama of the objectified world is completely pre-programmed and is running like a computer game, and we are only the characters on the game screen who obviously do not control the game. Even if one does not subscribe to this view, it is that bit easier in hindsight, after the action is over, to appreciate that in the context of the particular outcome, I was not the doer in a spiritual sense at least. In a spiritual sense, the murderer may ascribe the action on his part to his being a puppet in the hands of the Creator, or he may feel the specific situation justified his action of murder. For instance, he felt very aggrieved by a very oppressive employer, and that led him into a rage which resulted in his murderous action. So, in a spiritual sense, this particular situation, possibly scripted and engineered by the Creator, also is a doer as far as the murder is concerned. Even the murderer's inherent nature that caused him to go into a rage is also a doer of the murder in a spiritual sense. Again, the murderer was born with the particular nature, or at least the conditioning through the various past experiences may have been responsible for forging his nature into what it became eventually, leading him to take the murderous action. And both these can be attributed to the invisible hand of the Creator, who then becomes a doer in his own way. Thus, non-doership has to be understood as a spiritual concept and not a worldly one. Another important aspect of the concept of doership is that a typical ordinary man wants to claim or disclaim doership of his action depending upon the consequences of the action. Given human nature, it is not uncommon to find that when the consequence is desirable, the person wants to claim doership. But when the consequence is undesirable, he wants to wash his hands off the action by ascribing the doership to many other factors. This is not correct. One has to have a consistent and durable philosophy and not twist it to suit his selfish purposes from time to time. That is why Shri Krishna says in Shrimad Bhagawad Geeta that people are like robots. The word used, the Sanskrit word used is yantra rudhani. He also likens the situation to a person sitting in a chariot and going wherever the chariot goes without he himself doing anything. We are made up of the three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. Gunas can be looked at as our genetic makeup. The relative proportion of these gunas dictates our attitudes and actions. Now, when I say that I am doing this particular action, it is very vague concept of I. just a bundle defined by the physical body. However, we do not know, nor do we have any control over the process that actually produces the action. Our thoughts are not under our control. Even a simple physical action of moving our hand requires small contributory actions by many different cells in our body. Then how can we say, I am doing this? Often we agonize over different options for action available, and we do not know what exactly drives our thinking process to arrive at the final decision. We often take an action though our mind is unwilling to do it. Our likes and dislikes develop in a way we may not be able to explain. For example, two brothers growing up in the same household may develop different tastes. All in all, our actions seem to be the result of a very complex process. It is almost as if there is some kind of a computer software program inside us with a complicated algorithm that is the driver of our actions. So why should our conscious idea of I be regarded as the doer? We are therefore advised to not get attached to our actions and their apparent outcome. However, those without any understanding of this concept get attached to their ego and believe, I am doing this. But wise people should let such ignoramuses be and not try to argue with them or convince them, because they will never get convinced until and unless a desire for a spiritual way of life stabilizes in them. The Geeta talks about karma and akarma. Akarma is taking no action as against karma, which means action. There is a concept put forth in the Geeta that a yogi sees karma in akarma and akarma in karma. This concept is very intriguing and difficult to understand. The crux of this concept lies in non-doership. In any given situation, I may be performing some action or maybe not doing anything. If I am performing some action, I should not think that I am doing this. Instead, I should think that I am merely an instrument that is being operated by the divine. Then it becomes seeing akarma in karma. In a sense, it means not giving any importance to the limited bodily identity. Also, when I am not taking any action in a particular situation, I should think that my not acting is an essential part of the big picture in which some others are acting, though I am not acting. Even my non-action is contributing to the action of the big picture in its own way by not disturbing the actions of other performers. Non-doership does not mean doing nothing. It means not keeping an objective in mind while performing any action. When we have some objective, we perform some action that we think can achieve that objective. Then we think we are the doer of that action and also believe that because we are taking that action, we must get its fruit. However, a truly spiritual person will not perform action for achieving a particular objective. His action will be decided and driven by the situation at the given moment. In other words, he has a firm belief that he is always being used as an instrument by the divine and that he has nothing to get or achieve from the actions happening through his body. Such actions are beautifully described by way of the metaphor of sowing roasted seeds. Roasted seeds, if sown, can never germinate. Likewise, actions without any particular fruit in mind do not count as karma. On the contrary, actions towards a desired objective are like live seeds and will always germinate and grow into plants of karma to bear bitter or sweet fruits of worldly experiences, causing pain or happiness. But I can't help thinking that the attitude as above can be possible only when one starts developing vairagya bhav, that is detachment. If one is still interested in worldly life, it is impossible to not have any objectives at all and yet just keep performing action. If one genuinely has discarded doership, there is no question of any binding of papa, that is sin, or punya, that is credit for good deeds, and the consequent fruits thereof in his case. It is only when one believes he is the doer of his actions that he will tend to associate his actions and the subsequent events in a cause-effect relationship. But if there is no doership, then the person will simply look at every happening independent of his own past actions, firmly established in the faith that everything is happening as a part of the big picture, without me or anyone else as the doers. I will stop here today. Until the next time, take care. Bye.